Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Jones, and for my project I picked high school girls basketball. I played it myself in high school. I still love this sport, and I just thought it'd be really interesting for the project. The first thing I looked at was bioenergetics. There's two main energy systems in basketball. There's a phosphocreatine system and anaerobic glycolysis. The game is 32 minutes long, but it's just such short uh, amounts of movement that there are these quicker energy systems. We don't get in anything aerobic or any fatty oxidation. We're going to look at anaerobic glycolysis first. Um, that one takes 34% of a 32-minute game. Then the phosphocreatine system takes 66%. I arrived at these numbers. I went ahead, by watching a game. I divided up the game into some movements that I was seeing: rebounding, fast breaks, jump shots, layups, driving to the hoop, and then plays. It's just kind of like working out plays on the teams, say at one end of the court, um, and they're trying to work those plays. On the left side, I see the time of the movement. So the average time, like for rebounding, about 0 to 3 seconds. Fast breaks, 5 to 15 seconds, and so on. So I literally just tallied up the occurrences of these, multiplied them by about an average time. That's how I end up with the times on the right. So I have 4.5 minutes for rebounding, 7.5 minutes for fast breaks, 4.5 minutes for jump shots, 4.5 minutes for layups, and 11 minutes for the plays. Breaking down even further into movement analysis, I looked at running, jumping, dribbling, shooting, passing, and shuffling. I'm breaking those down. So looking at running, we see the movements of hip flexion, knee extension, and plantar flexion. So just to name a few of the muscles, I won't name them all. Hip flexion, we use the iliacus, the psoas major, the rectus femoris. For knee extension, we're going to use the vastus muscles, the medialis, lateralis, intermedius, rectus femoris. And then for plantar flexion, we're going to use the gastrocnemius, on the soleus, and the plantaris. Moving on to jumping, that's the next one. We still have knee extension and plantar flexion, but this time we see hip extension. So both sides of the muscles are, both sides of the joints are getting used in basketball. During jumping, for hip flexion, we see like the gluteus maximus, the semitendinous, the semimembranosus, biceps femoris, adductor magnus. And then moving on to dribbling, we see elbow extension and elbow pronation, because our palms are turned down, and wrist flexion, because obviously you are pushing the ball down with your fingers. So for elbow extension, obviously the triceps brachii, we also see the inconius, the pronator teres, pronator quadratus, and the brachioradialis are going to be the pronator muscles. Moving on to wrist flexion, we have all those flexor carpi muscles. There's the radialis, ulnaris, digitorum, superficialis, the digitorum profundus, and then the palmaris longus. So a lot of muscles used to move the hand. Moving on to shooting, we see a lot more shoulder movement. We still have the elbow extension and wrist flexion. And then, of course, depending on the type of shot, you're going to have some type of jumping. The knees bend, hips flex, and then you come up. Layups, obviously one knee's coming up, you're pushing off with the other foot. But those are just very similar to the jumping and into the running aspect. So we'll leave those aside and mainly look at the shoulder girdle and then the glenohumeral joint. So for the girdle, we have the levator scapula, the upper trapezius, and the rhomboid. So a lot of here, because we're lifting the shoulders up to get our arms overhead. And then for shoulder flexion, because we're raising our arms up, to make the shot, we're coming forward, we have the pectoralis majors, anterior deltoids, and the biceps, the short head of the biceps brachii, and then the coracobrachialis. So you're seeing a lot of the muscles overlap. I'm sure you've probably seen your own sports when you plotted them out. A lot of muscles in similar joints, especially in the upper body, they overlap with one another for different movements. We also have shuffling, a lot of side movement in basketball. That's why we do that very famous drill of the karaoke of the grapevine, crossing the feet over, moving laterally, whether it's our side shuffle. We have a lot of hip adduction and abduction. So if you're shuffling to the right, the right hip is adducting, it's moving laterally away, and the left leg is following, it's adducting, it's moving, medially toward the middle. So one leg is doing one leg is doing the other. So adduction, we see the pectinus, we see the adductor muscles, the brevis, the longus, the magnus, we have the gracilis and the gluteus maximus. And then again, we have a lot more of the glutes. For abduction, we have the medius, the minimus, the maximus, we have the psoas major, the tensor fasciae latae, the iliacus, and the sartorius. And then the last thing, of course, is passing. So it's that chest movement. That's why push-ups and chest presses are so important in training for basketball. We also do have, so we have the elbow extension again, because you're straightening the arms. We have shoulder flexion again, because our arms are coming up. And then for the shoulder girdle, though, we have abduction. So we see the serratus anterior and the pectoralis minor for shoulder girdle, abduction. So once we have all of those movements, we know the muscles, we can go ahead as coaches, as trainers, we can make our exercise routine. But we need to know where the girls are at. So that's where testing comes involved, especially during like the preseason and the off season, and when they're in the weight room by themselves or they're at home, going to the gym themselves. It's important that they know how much their 100% intensity is. What their starting point is. So then they can know from, obviously the first one is the 1RM back squat. If a girl can do 100 pounds, she could do 100 pounds. And then, when you want her to train at, 65 or 85% intensity, how many pounds to be putting on the barbell for the back squat. So it's good to know her 1RM, which is why we're getting to the first one. So why do we do the back squat? There's squatting involved with jumping. We load those muscles. We squat down before we jump up high. It's just how you get enough height. And this, it's really tests lower body strength, leg strength. Specifically, again, the 1RM max, the 1RM, or the 1 repetition max, excuse me. How many squats? These are 1 squats. The most weight they can lift at least 1 time. And this can be done safely as long as the proper warm-up is done. You have 2 spotters, 1 recorder. The spotters, can take the weight. You have a proper back squat rack. The athlete knows the proper, position to take. All those safety things. And as long as you take the proper breaks in between, then you will be fine. There's just a proper rest in between each 1RM attempt. And then we get into the bench press. And in this, 1RM, this is going to test upper body. It's going to test, those muscles that we use to push, to pass the ball. We use to, we're flexing the shoulders. We're using those pec muscles. We're using our elbow extender. So it's very important. We use these muscles during basketball. And again, it's a 1RM test. You only need 1 spotter for this one, 1 recorder. Obviously, you need a bench press, bar, and bench setup. Moving on to the vertical jump, I actually have a picture here out of our textbook. Now they have like a device, but you literally just need a wall with a flat surface and a measuring tape. If you don't have a measuring tape, you can even have someone, stand near on a box or something, even mark it off, and, measure it later. So just so they're, jumping down and coming up. And obviously, jumping is important. Rebounding, jumping for that initial ball toss up, jumping for shots. Height is very important in basketball. The T-test, you need 4 cones and measured out 10 yards and then 5 on either side, making a T. This is very good for shuffling, switching direction, cutting is big in basketball, and ACL injuries are big for high school girls basketball players because they are not used to the cutting motion. So this is a good test to see where the girls are at, see how much strength you need. 40-yard sprint, very self-explanatory. You need a stopwatch. You need to measure it out. Speed is very important, especially for fast breaks. Then we have the push-up test. For girls, on their knees, back nice and straight, hips should be fully extended. There should be no flexion at the hips. 1-inch foam roller. And this is going to be different from the bench press, and the fact that the bench press was looking at the maximum amount you could do. This is more endurance. And then we have the 300-yard shuffle. 300-yard shuffle, you need a stopwatch. You need, the course mapped out. If it works, you could do it outside on the school track, or you could do it inside in the gym. This one I suggest doing on a separate day. I had it as the second day in my textbook, and that's just because of fatigue. All the rests can be done with, 3 to 5 minute rests in between. Obviously, you really don't have to rest between the back squat and the bench press because you're moving from lower body to upper body, but it's still a good idea to give the girls a slight rest. So once you have all of those mapped out, you can get into your training. So I started with off-season training. And I had 6 months, about 6 months off season for basketball. I dedicated the first 4 months to, have it in front of me, to endurance and hypertrophy. And in the last 2 months, to strength and power. So I stuck with 65 and 85% intensity, and then use the textbook recommendations for that intensity. So like for the 65%, I have 3 sets of 15 reps, 45 seconds rest in between. Frequency, I have twice a week. I picked Monday, Wednesdays for upper body, Tuesdays, Thursdays for lower body. For resistance, for instance, I have for the first month, for weeks 1 and 3, I have the shoulder press, the lat raise, lunges, bicep curls, tricep extension, hip flexion using a cable machine, and calf raises. As you can see, I included bicep curls even though there isn't any elbow flexion dedicated in basketball, but it's good to have overall arm strength, and we don't want to, there's supposed to be a balance between the sides of the joint for muscles. We don't want to create an imbalance. For plyometrics, I have plyometric push-ups and plyometric sit-ups. And for speed and agility for the first 2 months, I have interval running. So I have 3 sets of high-low. So going back and forth, you could do like a minute jog, 30-second sprint, or like a minute and a half, 2-minute jog, 30-second sprint, or all-out run for 1 minute, just so that the girls get used to being at that steady pace with those quick bursts of energy. Actually had a coach in practice who had us run, and then just whenever she blew the whistle, we had to sprint till we heard the whistle, blown again. Moving on to the other alternating weeks, for first month again, weeks 2 and 4. I added hip adduction exercises in the cable machine. I switched to regular push-ups. Chest press, Russian twists, again to work the core muscles. Like I had the plyometric sit-ups and other one. Core strength is very important so that the girls have a great sense of balance and stability. It works in as well as long with strengthening the knees and the ankles to help prevent those injuries. The more balance the girls have, the cutting motions, and the stronger everything is, the less chance they have an injury. I added a squat jump, plyometrics. Even if you want to do a resistance one, with the weights, and just, hold on to the weights, squat down, at least come up onto the toes or jump up. I also have front raises, again, working those, the chest muscles, flexing the shoulder. And again, as you can see, I kept it the same as I had for weeks 1 and 3. Moving on to the last 2 months, I have what I had for month 5 here for weeks 1 and 3 and 2 and 4. I focus more on power